Great Debaters Contest is brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.
Bonjour tout le monde and welcome to the Great Debaters Contest. We're in Kiambu and I am Austin Nyambok.
And I am Mariam Bishar. We have Kiambu Giants, Maryhill and Mangu High School debating today, and they are answering the question whether growing up in Africa limits your innovation potential. We'll have them take the stage now. Proposer number 1, you have 3 minutes.
I greatly propose this motion as it not only brings out the major problems that are concurring, the major problems that are affecting Africa and their concurring effects that face Africa as a continent, but it also explains us Africans as the inhabitants lack great exposure due to poor leadership as one of the major aspects of poor innovation, development, and exposure. Now, look at this. Most Africans are third world countries and LDCs, that is low development countries. Why? This is due to corruption. Nigeria ranked as number 1 in corruption ratings, over that their ratings are over the roof. Listen to this, 68% of the total population is engaged in corruption, and I'm not actually adding the children, and that's an African country, and this is closely followed by Kenya. Remember, this motion is not only about race, but it's about place. We're not looking at Africans as not being innovative, but we're looking at the aspect of the area in question, which is Africa. My very esteemed group and I came up with this not only convincing, but also amazing points. Most of these continents that actually oversees Africa, they have enabling environments. Many overseas governments have set aside development blocks and projects that clearly encourage both not only technological innovation, but entrepreneurial innovation. Look at this. The Chinese, the moment they set up, they spot an innovative individual. They in the matter, not even looking at the matter of age. They just take him and then they take him from training and for exposure and look at the industries. They're fast and effective due to robots run by human beings. Presence of various widespread valuable natural resources that enable maximum exploitation of potential innovation in these countries that are overseas. Look at this. There's oil in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, in Texas. These are not found. Actually, they're not greatly exploited in Africa. Uranium in Russia is very rare in Africa. Now, also gold in China. It's one of the leading producers of gold. There's a well-restructured education system that gives various students skills that enable the exploitation of innovation potential. Now, these countries in this overseas continents, they actually concentrate on the students' talents, not actually looking at the amount of content that we're going to read. Take, for example, why do we actually read River and the Source? After you read that book, it will never be of any essence if you want to be a doctor. If you don't want to be a doctor, why do you do biology? I don't think it's appropriate. And this is very strong in the Kenyan government, and also not only Kenyan government, but also Africa in general. Now, moving on to corruption. As I stated earlier, now, the capital in these foreign countries, several investment blocks in foreign countries, such as JP Morgan Investment, avail capital for those with innovative ideologies. I hand over the stage to the next, and I also hope that you guys will support us in this, because this is very major. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes for your opening remarks.
My name is Francisca Ayo from the Maryhill Girls High School. First of all, I'd like to start by breaking the motion that was not stated by our proposers. What is growing up in Africa? Growing up in Africa is simply saying that being raised in an African environment, you're talking about limiting. Limiting is simply hindering to not be able to grow to perfect maturity. And when you talk about innovation, innovation is simply adapting to change in your environment to deliver better products or services. And when we talk about potential, what do you mean, ladies and gentlemen? We mean that potential is what I see when I look at you and when I look at myself every day in the morning and tell myself that I have the capability to do something. And with that, I'd like to start by saying Africa has the necessary base for our innovation. Take, for example, that Africa is the mother of civilization. From the history of the black scientist by Cedella Blatch shows that people in African descent come from a rich and elaborate cultures that create a wealth of technologies in many areas. For example, navigation. We all know what navigation is. We're talking about ships. Many ancient societies in Africa built a variety of boats. For example, the Mai and Songhai that built boats 100 feet long and 13 feet wide that could carry up to 80 tons. Another point is that necessity is the mother of invention. You can't give solutions to solutions. What good is that? You need to give solutions to problems. That's why we have Africa. For example, in Mozambique, it is estimated that 71% of Mozambique children under the age of 5 suffered a stunted growth, weakened immunity, increased mortality rates. This was curbed by a groundbreaking 2-year project that used orange-fleshed sweet potatoes to boost immunization in children. This is from the annual general meeting of consultative group in the International African Research. That is why I'm asking the proposers who still think that Africa is limiting us to think twice. Thank you.
We'll hear rebuttals now. Proposers, you have 3 minutes.
I go back to my opposers. They clearly stated that it's not about, we clearly stated in our proposal that it's not about race. It's clearly about place. When we clearly emphasize that it's not about African countries, you're not looking about the issues that they're actually facing. You're not looking about the problems that are actually being caused. You're looking about the solutions that should be forwarded to the African countries. On her point on civilization, technically, there are several foreign countries that were civilized hundreds, in fact, a millennia before African countries actually became civilized. For example, the Sumerians, in the Sumerians from Far East Asia, the Mayans from South America. This is a clear illustration of civilization way beyond us Africans. They clearly had the technological advancement. Like, for example, the Mayans clearly stated the distance from the Earth to the Sun, only missing by a few kilometers. And that was a clear step forward. And this is a country that existed. This is a group of people that existed way before Africans could actually know how to a way of reading and writing. Let's go in terms of education. Education in foreign countries is far much superior. You clearly agree with me with that. They specify and specialize on the particulars that will enable you to maximize your initial and maximum potential. On the part of in the medical sector, we clearly see that most medical and biological advancements, research, technologies, even the basis of our syllabus right now in terms of the medical fraternity, clearly came from abroad, foreign countries. We're not limiting ourselves, clearly, please. We're not limiting ourselves when we state that foreign countries are more superior. We should actually strive as Africa, as a group of countries, as a continent, strive to achieve our maximum potential by using them as an example. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes for rebuttal.
Greetings. I'm Marlene Chimoy from the Maryhill Girls High School. Now, I heard one of my worthy opponents mention the river and the source. Why would I read the river and the source? And I'm going to do, which course was it? Yes, the course they mentioned. Well, if you do your literature very well, the river and the source gives you a scope, the cultural beliefs of a country, before you venture in innovation. Now, you gave us an example of China, of how there are development projects to enhance innovation. Well, let me give you an example in Kenya. We have the Chandaria Innovation Center in the Kenyatta University, not very far from here, by the way, which help give support to young innovators with great ideas to move this country forward. Now, someone mentioned of how civilization was once began far off before Africa itself began civilization. Do you know? Let us take a look at Judge Booker. Did you know that the dreadlocks on her hair started in Africa, the Makia community in Northern Africa? Did you know that makeup was once started in Egypt as a way to prevent the Egyptians from sunlight? Mathematics, a compulsory subject, was first in Egypt, pi 3.124. Basic formula, isn't it? How dare you say that innovation is not in Africa? Dr. Latif Sani of the University of Agriculture in Nigeria received an award for outstanding, mark my word, outstanding agricultural technology in sub-Saharan Africa. Why? Designed a rotary dryer to increase the production of cassava flour from 300 to 300 kgs for every hour. How? He helped increase the use of locally manufactured flash dryers in Nigeria from 2 units to over 60 units before 2003. An outstanding 58 difference. Now, need I say more? I don't think so.
Empezar, what a bang, what a bang, what a bang, what a bang. I'm trying to shine, know how to be. I'm working hard, how hard it be. What a bang, 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 what a bang. Empezar, what a bang, what a bang.
Take part in the M Challenge by sending your short song, rap or poem about Safaricom M-Pesa on WhatsApp, and you could win 1,000 shillings in Safaricom airtime.
The audience has posed questions to the two teams. The debaters will be responding. The proposers have been asked to talk more about education systems in all of Africa as opposed to just focusing on Kenya. And the opposition have been challenged that how can Africa lead in innovation, yet our education curricula consist of a lot of unnecessary stuff. Proposal number 3, you have 3 minutes.
I wish to start by saying that we said that education systems in Kenya are just limited. One thing we wish to tell you is that education systems in foreign countries other than Africa have clearly shown to be stronger, and they actually, we defined further by saying that education systems in places like the US, they take you from a lower level and actually focus on nurturing you to what you want to become. Whereas in other places like Africa, where most educational systems focus on they focus on nurturing you in general instead of focusing on what you want to become. Thus, your potential is not maximized upon. Thank you.
Maryhill, you have 3 minutes to respond.
My name is Joyce Mudhoni from the Maryhill Girls High School. How does history connect to engineering? My dear, you need to know that engineering also has a history. At least you need to know the meaning of history, right? For me to cater for engineering, you need to know that engineering had a history. What is engineering? Where did it start from? It connects. And by the way, it hurts so much to say that the education we have does not have necessary things. Experience is the best teacher. Have you not seen a case where you enter Form 1, you want to be let's say in Kenya, for example, where you enter Form 1, you want to be an engineer. By the time you're in Form 4, you want to be a mechanic. It's because experience is the best teacher. You get to know things. You get to know a greater experience of education. By the way, the opposers also said that education of other continents has proved to be better than the system in Africa. How? Which fact? It seems they don't understand. Well, then I'll give them another example for them to understand better. Another outstanding innovation, especially in Africa, their source being the 2008 annual general meeting of the Conservative Group on International Agricultural Research. Dr. Sonny David and her team trained farmers in West African countries to come up with cocoa production to increase. One, you realize that they use digital video cameras to share the knowledge of cocoa production, to increase it. And for this, she earned an outstanding communication award from the Sustainable Tree Crops Program of the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. With this, you realize that truly Africa has a good base of innovation potential. There's one quote that says from Muhammad Ali, "Do not count the days, make the days count." Hence, do not make or do not count the mistakes and the setbacks of the African environment. My fellow proposers, actually, what you should do is take these setbacks and the mistakes and actually make them into greater innovations. What else can I say than to ask you, what else are you doing in Africa? But to use the mistakes and make them greater innovations. Thank you.
We'll now hear closing statements. Proposers, you have 1 minute.
I'd like to clearly state that actually what the proposers are saying, or the opposers are saying, is that they're giving us facts which are not actually very legible. You guys are only focusing on agriculture. What about industry? Now look at this. When we have agriculture and we don't have processing industries, what is the essence of growing crops? Now, moving on to the other point of education. You're saying that if I read River and the Source, that will actually open my broad base. Who told you that if I don't read it, actually it will give me more time to focus on biology and all other sciences that I may pass, actually? Okay, my closing statement. I urge all of you, including our very beautiful judge and the rest of the handsome ones, to strongly side with us, as this is a great problem that we are facing, not only us as inhabitants, but also us as the guys who live in Africa, where most of us are Africans here. I don't think there's any other race. Okay, thank you. I'd like to conclude with that. Thank you.
Opposition, you have a minute as well for your closing remarks.
I will not argue. Africa is us. The greatest gift to us is Africa. It does not limit innovation potential. In fact, problems stated to us, poverty, illiteracy, economic underdevelopment. What are these? These necessitate innovation. They, just like we had said earlier, you do not give a problem, a solution to a problem, but a solution to a problem. Therefore, if I were to state this motion, I would say, growing up in Africa necessitates innovation potential. I rest my case.
For the two schools, it's not your first time to debate, so you're experienced people, and so you always expect the best. And of course, if your predecessors have tried to put the yardstick at a higher note, we always expect that you always try to pass or surpass that. Mangu High School, I would want to address Victor. Victor, I think you're a good debater, you're a good speaker, good mastery of language, good points and good summations, you know. At some point, I thought you were reading too much, simply because, I guess, in terms of preparation. But I think if you had enough time, you can really make a good first speaker for your team. Maryhill, Francisca, I think the first thing that really stands out from you is that you're very passionate. You know, when you really want to put your point across, everybody has to get to know that you're putting your point across. You know, and that is quite a good character for debate. All the best to the two teams.
What I was hoping to hear from Mangu, and I know you allude to some of the challenges that that limit one's innovation potential in Africa, and you talk about the education system, but there are many other things that you could have focused on. For innovation to happen or to take place, then there has to be a conducive environment that facilitates that. And we know that one of the challenges, or some of the challenges plaguing Africa are corruption, the civil war. There are very many countries that have experienced civil war. The internal conflict within African nations. And mine was hoping that you would allude to some of these things and say that when you operate in such an environment, then it's very difficult for one to be innovative. All the best to the two schools.
Maryhill girls, again, very passionate, three passionate debaters, but I think the person that we agree stands out is Marlene. And you're calm, you're collected, you're intelligent, and truth be told, I think you've borrowed a lot from your predecessor. I remember Onduso sitting in as a second speaker, cross-examiner, and I think I always admired her whenever she stood to speak, and her undertone of sarcasm whenever she debates. You have a mild sarcasm, actually, and that, I believe, has been borrowed heavily from your friend. I say that you are an adult with the body of a student, actually. I love the way you think, and I love the way you execute your issues. But what makes me actually endear to you is the calm nature in which you present your arguments, which is quite convincing. And challenges in Africa make us innovative. I have never thought of it that way, but now I agree, and I'm proud being born in Africa, that the challenges in Africa should not put us down, but it is what should push us to become innovative. That was quite a creative way of addressing the motion. Commendable job to the two teams.
Mangu High School, the judges awarded you with 60%. Please give them a hand. For such short notice, that's a very commendable job. And their opponents, Maryhill, the judges gave you 71%, making you the winners.
Congratulations to the two teams, and I actually have a quote that I'll borrow from Maryhill. Africa is us. And we'd like to send our gratitude to Safaricom M-Pesa and KBC Channel 1, urging members of the audience and our viewers back home, follow us on Twitter at Great Debaters EA and all our social media platforms. I'm Austin Nyimbok.
And I am Mariam Bishar. Thank you for watching.
The Great Debaters Contest was brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.